The February 25th, 2013 Mayor's Commission for Citizens with Disabilities meeting. I'd like to welcome our television audience. This meeting is broadcast on Cox Channel 18 every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Our actual board meetings occur the fourth Monday of each month at the Legislative Chambers at 1819 Farnham Street in the City and Douglas County Civic Center. The general public, are certainly welcome to join us for our meetings. You can also find information on our commission on the City of Omaha website, and we'll have a little more information on accessing our website when we do our individual introductions. My name is Mike Masker. I'm the chairperson of the commission. I'd like to remind you that our purpose and our objective for the Mayor's Commission is to promote quality of life, accessibility, and equity in all aspects related to the City of Omaha on behalf of and in cooperation with the citizens of Omaha who experience disabilities. To this end, the Commission will advise the Mayor, the City Council, City Department heads, and other City of Omaha personnel on issues of access, representation, employment, housing, and quality of life affecting city citizens with disabilities and their respective families. We also serve as a resource for Omaha citizens with disabilities and their families to express concerns and resolutions regarding issues affecting them. One such issue that we've chimed in on, there is a legislative bill that just passed committee. LB 434 was introduced by State Senator Scott Price of Bellevue. And the bill directs state emergency management officials to work with local agencies on developing registries of people with particular needs in their areas. And we as a commission have just expressed our support for this bill. And one area of concern, or we hope an area that will continue to be addressed, is just how to avoid any type of abuse or misuse of these lists. So I know those are conversations that are occurring, but again, we as a commission absolutely are in support of this, and any ways that we can help advocate for the needs of persons in the community with disabilities and those first responders and emergency responders, having more information for them is certainly a step in the right direction. So we appreciate the support there. In our commission, each time we meet, we have a pre-meeting that runs from 3 until 4 o'clock. Today we also met with Mayor Settle and just discussed some updates on our commission. Also received some direction from the mayor, and we certainly appreciate his time and his direction. And I think it was very much a productive meeting. We discussed some of the current works in progress. One of those is a PowerPoint that we'll be rolling out here in the next couple months to help educate the city and county agencies or county employees to help educate them on better interacting with persons with disabilities. Received some feedback from Mayor Settle on that. We spoke of our subcommittees, which will shortly have a report out and introductions. And then just spoke of some other opportunities that are coming to the city where the Mayor's Commission for Citizens with Disabilities may have an opportunity to be involved. So, again, we appreciate the Mayor's time and his support of what we're doing. He's very much an advocate for persons with disabilities, and we feel fortunate to have his support. So, just a reminder that you may want to have something to write with handy, as in later in the broadcast we'll have announcements that on events and services that are available from the members of the commission and our organizations. And at this time, I'd like to just take an opportunity to allow each member to introduce themselves and introduce the organization they work for, and just give a brief introduction. We'll start with Michaela on my right.
Hello, my name is Michaela Williams, and I'm with Care Consultants for the Aging. I work with seniors in the community of Omaha.
My name is Amanda Vasquez, and I'm the Government Relations Director for the Great Plains Chapter Paralyzed Veterans of America here in Omaha.
My name is Kathy Miklas, and I'm a speech-language pathologist. I work for Allegiant Home Health, and I represent the needs of people who have difficulty with communicating, or people in the community who are attempting to resolve communication issues with people who have trouble with communication.
And my name, once again, is Mike Masker. I'm with the Allegiant Creighton Health Emmanuel Rehabilitation Center, where we provide a full continuum of physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, and therapeutic recreation services. And the subcommittee that I represent is the Employment Subcommittee, and we'll have a report out on that in just a minute.
I'm Beth Ellsworth. I work with the Nebraska Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. We have a lot of different services that we provide, not just to deaf and hard of hearing, but also educating the public about hearing loss and noise awareness.
My name is Mary Angus. I represent people with mental illness, self-employed with Angus Disability Consulting.
Hello, my name is Mark Smith. I'm the Resource and Family Support Coordinator for the Monroe-Meyer Institute, which is part of the University of Nebraska Medical Center. The Monroe-Meyer Institute provides training, technical assistance, does research, and provides services to individuals with developmental disabilities and their families.
In our pre-meeting, we discussed the minutes from our November and January meetings. The minutes were approved, so all of our pre-business was taken care of, and so we can check that off the list. Good job, guys. As is our tradition or our process, we like to provide information on businesses and organizations that help support the needs of persons in the community with disabilities. And we're really pleased to have Marla Fisher-Limke here today with us. She's with the ARC of Nebraska and has been so gracious to share her time with us today. Welcome, Marla.
Thank you.
Thanks to all of you for asking me here today. I'm just going to give you kind of an overview of the ARC of Nebraska. We'll sort of walk through a history and talk about a little bit of what we do at the state level, what some of our local chapters do, and then I'd like to share with you a couple of presentations that we have put together. And feel free to ask any questions as I go along. First of all, just kind of a historical perspective about the ARC of Nebraska. The ARC as an organization has been around for over 60 years nationwide. It became really, really active in about the 70s here in Nebraska. And the Eastern Nebraska Community Office of Retardation, or ENCOR, was started as the first regional community services agency formed by 4 county governments. And the reason that it began was because people primarily with developmental disabilities and intellectual disabilities were placed at institutions. And many Nebraskans with those disabilities were at the Beatrice State Developmental Center. Parents actually, when children were born with an apparent disability, were encouraged to place their children at that institution. And so people were kind of hidden away and weren't really expected to be a part of their community if they had a disability. So ENCOR, or the beginning of ENCOR, was one of the beginning efforts to provide services for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities in the community. The ARC started that movement with their Pilot Parents program in Omaha by GoARC, which was the Greater Omaha Association of Retarded Citizens at the time. We no longer use that word in our name, and it's no longer an acronym, but it was at the time. They got a bunch of families together whose children were in institutions and really got things going with moving children and people with disabilities out of those institutions. They recognize that no longer do they want family members in institutions. They want them to be participating members of their community. And so the Horacek v. Exon lawsuit was put into place. At the same time, the People First movement kind of began, where people with disabilities no longer wanted any decisions made about them without them. And so they got together and wanted to make sure that their voice was heard as well. It wasn't, families are important, but families aren't the only ones who should be making decisions about people with disabilities. Their voice needs to be heard as well. Along the same lines, the individual program plan, or IPP process, began. And this was something that was originally designed to create a plan of how that was going to take effect, how services were going to happen in the community for people. And then most of us are familiar with Public Law 94-142, which is the Education for All Handicapped Children Act, which later became IDEA. And this is the act that put into place special education services. And so all of these things were happening, a lot of it with families getting together, and that was kind of, the ARC acted as a catalyst for that to occur. In the years of 1980 to 1990, home and community-based waiver services for children with mental retardation and their families were approved for Nebraska. And so what those waiver services are basically Medicaid will automatically pay for services for people with developmental disabilities to receive services in an institutional setting. Waiver services provide for those to happen in the community. And so during those years, those waiver services were more implemented. In 1990 to 2000, the ARC of Nebraska began using quality review teams to see how those services were being used in the community, to make sure that they met the needs of people, and to make sure that people were living a life of quality, going where they wanted to go, doing things that they wanted to do, not just having food, clothing, and shelter. There's more to life than that. And then finally, Governor Nelson put into place a blueprint for action which addressed the waiting list. Currently, and for a long time now, there has been a waiting list for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities to receive services in the community. When students graduate from high school, they're automatically entitled to services during the day to support their needs. So maybe going to work, going different places in the community, and so on. But they don't often have help residentially. And so for those services, they're placed on a waiting list. Currently, there are about 1,700 people on Nebraska's waiting list for DD services. And the ARC monitors that closely, and we work with legislators. Let's see, this last year there was, I think, $3.6 million that was put into place for the waiting list. And then a couple of years before that, I believe it was $15 million that was spread over a biennium. There's a lot more money that needs to be put into place in order for the waiting list to disappear.
Yeah, I've got a question. When you talk about residential services, I know I get confused by that because it sounds like residents in an institution. Could you define residential services, please?
Sure. Residential services are supports that people need to live in their own home. And their own home might look different from one person to the next. Some people might live in their own apartment or their own house. They might live with their family, and someone would come in to provide them some supports in their home, maybe with cooking, cleaning, getting dressed, that sort of a thing. Some people also do live in group homes. That's a little bit more restrictive. But no, when I'm talking about residential services, it's outside of an institutional setting. Thanks for the question.
Thank you.
I had a quick question, too. Out of the 1,700, is there one service or another that predominantly residents or persons are waiting on? I guess, just if you had to categorize it, are there certain services that are more in demand than others, and is that what's creating some of the bottleneck too?
Not necessarily. We've asked the state if there's a breakdown, say, between children and adults who are waiting for services. They don't really seem to track that information. They just kind of go by the person's date of need, and it's for any services that they don't feel are being met. they might need more services during the day. Perhaps they don't have everything that they need. They have some to which they're entitled, but not everything. So we really don't know. It's not tracked. As I mentioned, there is still a waiting list. It does continue to grow, and some funds have been appropriated recently. There's a bill in the legislature again this year, LB 375, which is hopefully going to appropriate more funds toward the waiting list. If you happen to look at that bill, you won't see a certain amount that's listed in the bill at this point. That was something that Senator Lathrop did last year when he introduced a bill for the waiting list. Basically, it's to kind of leave it open-ended so that a discussion has to be had about it, and hopefully some funds are actually proposed rather than saying a yes or a no to the amount that was initially proposed. We continue to follow, along with other organizations, the conditions at the Beatrice State Developmental Center. I believe the census now is under 150 people. Again, we would like to see that institution closed with people moved out into their community, but we understand that that's a process, and we always offer our support in any way that we can for that. Changes to services delivery. As you'll note later, we try to implement a lot of different ways to approach systems change here in Nebraska. Basically, you can see that all of the changes that have happened throughout the years were based on a need for people to come together, and the need still exists. Parents and families needed and still do need support. Families want to keep children in the family at home. They want a right to a free, appropriate public education, and they want an emphasis on community-based services. So they did then and they do now. We need to eliminate the waiting list. We need full community participation by all citizens. Something that usually isn't considered often for children with disabilities, especially when we're looking at transition services, and those are for students who are age 16 through 21. A lot of conversations aren't being had for post-secondary education. And we want students with disabilities to be planning for that as a part of their career path, just like students without disabilities. And then we also are really looking at employment and careers for people with disabilities. And in a little bit, I'll show you a YouTube video that we created. That's one of three that kind of talks about that. Just kind of a organizational structure of the ARC for a visual for you. There are 13 local ARC chapters in Nebraska. All of the members of those chapters are members of the ARC of Nebraska, and then we all are members of the ARC of the United States. And so at the ARC of the United States level, I believe there are about 700 or so chapters across the nation. And at that level, they track most of the federal legislation, and then systems change issues. They track best practices and network with other national organizations that promote community inclusion for people with developmental disabilities and families. And then at the state level, we do all of those things kind of at the state level. And then our 13 local chapters do more direct support and advocacy for families. We all operate under a system of core values. I'm not going to read these all, or certainly not the descriptions, but they entail people, the idea of people first, equity, community, self-determination, and diversity. And we also operate under guiding principles, which include participatory democracy, visionary leadership, public interest, collaboration, and transparency, integrity, and excellence. The ARC of Nebraska's mission is that we advocate for the rights and full participation of all children and adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Together with our network of members and affiliated chapters, we improve systems of supports and services, connect families, inspire communities, and influence public policy. I mentioned before that we have a heavy focus on legislative advocacy. Every year we have a senatorial appreciation dinner, and This year we had, I think, probably about 250 people attend. And we had, I think, about 30 senators say they were coming. I don't think quite that many were able to come, but that was a great response, and it was more than we've had in the past couple of years.
I was one of our local senators who was awarded the Harold Seek Award, I believe, Jeremy Nordquist.
That's correct, yes. Each year we award a senator the Harold Seek Award, and that is a senator who has really done a lot for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their families throughout the year. And we wanted to recognize Senator Nordquist for LB 952 last year, which stopped the drastic cuts that were on board for Medicaid. So we were very grateful to him for that. We also started a new award this year for legislative advocacy, and this is something that we want to be able to go to legislative aides or other people who take an active role for legislative advocacy for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And this year we awarded that to Gary Weiss, and he is with the Nebraska Ombudsman's Office. And there are not very many people who work in that office, but boy, do they have a job to do when families really need supports and don't seem to be getting anywhere. Their office gets called, and so they're familiar with gaps among systems, and they're kind of the connectors to put the bug in the ear of the legislators that these things are happening. And then finally, we do a lot with relationship building. Again, because we operate at so many levels, we're well connected, and then we also recognize that it's no one organization that can possibly move things forward. It takes a network of many people and many organizations, and we've seen that throughout our history. Some priority legislation that we're tracking very closely. I've just listed a few of the bills. We have many, many more that we've been tracking, and those are on our Take Action page on our website. But I wanted to mention these three because we talked about them at our legislative briefing session, and some people helped out with that who might be familiar to you. But LB 343 is a bill that was just heard last week, and that bill is to eliminate the use of the term mental retardation from Nebraska's laws, and we testified in support of that bill. And we also, it was great to hear from people who have disabilities themselves who are impacted by that term quite often, and their stories made quite a difference, I'd say. Senator Christ, who sits on the Health and Human Services Committee, asked at the end of the hearing if they could attach an emergency clause to the bill so that it would go into effect immediately when the session ended. So we were excited to hear that. It was good to hear that they were on board with that idea as well. LB 375, again, the waiting list is important, so this bill would fund the waiting list for people in need of services. And again, it doesn't have an amount attached to it this year, but we're hoping that something will be appropriated, and we're working with senators to make that happen. And then LB 577 is a bill that is scheduled to be heard this Thursday, and it works to expand Medicaid so that more Nebraskans have access to health care.
Marla, I guess one thing folks might be interested in hearing is we're talking about individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. About how many citizens in Nebraska that can be seen as having that condition lack in health insurance at this time?
I don't have a number in front of me. I don't know. I don't know that for sure. But I do know. Does anyone else?
Well, I had heard numbers in the range of 15,000.
That's quite possible, yeah.
So I didn't know if you were privy to the same information, or...
I probably am. I just don't have it in my head right now.
Reasonable. Thank you.
One of the things that we did this year as part of our senatorial dinner was we've had panels in the past before share information about maybe how they're employed in their community or how they access their community. And this year we did something a little bit different. We had a grant from the Nebraska Planning Council on Developmental Disabilities, and This is a legislative advocacy grant, and what our project is that we train 5 people with developmental disabilities to train 25 people from 25 different legislative districts on how to share their story and build a relationship with their legislator. And so we trained all of these people, and then we videotaped them sharing their story. And we took clips of those videos to come up with the video that you'll see that we shared at senatorial dinner, and we now have on YouTube. So if it's okay, I will share this. No. I'm sorry.
In 1956 in Juniata, I became the older brother to my sister Brenda. She didn't choose to be born with Down syndrome. The best advice that medical people had at the time was to put her in Beatrice State Home, it was called at that time, and forget about her. My parents chose to have her at home.
At that time, a couple months prior to that, my husband and I had to give up our parental rights, and I sent an affidavit to the county attorney, and my son was taken from my home and put into foster care so that his case could become a priority and he could be placed on the waiver quicker.
And then another really thing that's important for a family like ours, that we have good jobs, we have an income, we have health insurance. However, our health insurance doesn't cover anything for Hayden, and he needs speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, and our insurance has not paid for that for over 4 years. And so that completely comes out of our pocket. So the autism waiver is very important to us, or any type of waiver that helps families that do have an income. You know, we do have money to pay for things, but we still have everything that the regular, citizen has, a mortgage, a car payment, all of those things. But yet we have this incredible expense, and not like a $20 expense, it's hundreds of dollars every week. It's probably more than our house payment every single month for the therapy that we want Hayden, because we see such gains in his abilities when we do provide that therapy. So it's essential to our lives, it's essential to our son, and it's very important.
But the thing that I want to get across is that my fear is that when we look at the budget issues that are coming up, and we look at the fiscal cliffs that are going on nationally that will come to the state level, my fear is that we always look at the biggest budgets. We look at Medicaid, and we look at Health and Human Services, and we start looking at the services that for people that those services were designed for. And my young man is somebody that those services were designed for. Because of the services that he's had, my wife and I have been able to be productive citizens. He has a daycare that he goes to, 15 years old, still in a daycare. And it's not a typical daycare. There has to be a nurse on staff. Not just everybody can feed somebody with a feeding tube. He has seizures. Not everybody can take care of a young man that has seizures. And some of the things that we worry about is, what are those services going to cost when those get passed on to us? It's $80 a day to send him where we send him. And if we're unable to do that, then we're unable to work full time.
My name is Jody, and I've been a quadriplegic for 37 of my 41 years of life. I never thought that my life would take that kind of turn, but it just shows that a disability can happen to anyone at any time. Because of the home health aides that I've received through Medicaid, I've been able to retain my independence, an independence that has allowed me to graduate from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln and to live on my own. That's why the constant cuts to Medicaid strike fear in me. I need these home health aides to help me live a life like anyone else. A life where I get up in the morning, where I have lunch with friends, dinner with friends, go out with friends, and come home at night and actually get back into bed.
Hi, my name is Lynn Redding. I am a person with a disability. I was in a workshop and was told that I would never get a real job because of my disability. I don't like workshops because it's not meaningful work. It was paid by the piece, work that we got less than minimum wage to do. So I went out and got a job, and I was told by the past account specialist that I would not be able to take the management position that I was offered because I would be making too much. I can't lose my Medicaid. I can't afford my meds, let alone live. The insurance that is offered by my current job is too expensive for me to take. I want to be self-sufficient, but I'm dependent on Medicaid. I want to be a manager. I want to be independent, but I can't lose my health insurance. I want the same opportunities as other people.
One of my primary focus right at this point in time is health care. There are people with disabilities. There's a large number of people with disabilities out there that have no insurance. They are not eligible for Social Security, so they don't qualify for Medicare. Their incomes are too high to qualify for Medicare. So they are basically trying to function on their own. This is scary. These people are just one little disaster away from losing everything in their lives.
For people that are waiting for services now in Nebraska, it's much like what my family experienced back in the 50s when no services were available. In some ways, it may be worse when you think about 5,000 people receiving supports that you and your family are equally eligible for, but yet you can't receive services.
And our life is finally back into normalcy. We're actually enjoying the time together, and it was all from that one meeting and building those relationships with the senators that things have changed and things are looking up. If you would have asked me last year how I was, my life was crumbling and falling apart, and now my son's getting all the services that he needs. It's just we're at a happier place, and it's all because of the way that people talked and got things going. And so the only thing that I would hope for is that other people that are in this situation where it's not the fault of the parents, it's not the fault of the children, it's just that more spots are available for those children, and that people don't have to go to the extent to testify and to raise awareness.
And I would think that would be my one fear. But as I said, we are very blessed in the fact that we're not near that number. But I do know families that are, and I do know families that haven't, have lost everything, have lost all of their services. And I don't know what I would do in that position. I would fight, but you know, I really think that that these stories. I think you need to listen to them, and I think you need to put yourself in their shoes, walk a mile in their shoes, and I hope these really they come to you when you're making a decision. When you need to make a decision, I hope you remember these stories.
I want to be seen as more than a dollar sign because I'm someone's daughter, I'm someone's best friend, I'm someone's sister. I'm like anyone else.
I'm not going to let this whole the credits roll through, but we definitely want to thank everybody who participated in the video, and all of the credits are available at the YouTube site that are of everyone who participated. So. As soon as I know how to get out of here. Thanks. I also mentioned that we have, yes, I'm sorry.
Yes, I wanted to find out why it's not closed captioned. There are a lot of people that have a hearing loss. In fact, the population, the number of people with a hearing loss is skyrocketing. Is that something that you can talk to someone about getting that taken care of?
Yes, we can do that, and I appreciate that comment. And we also, I believe, need to put a voice to the words that are on the text screens as well. Mm-hmm. So I do appreciate that input.
All right. Thank you so much for taking care of that.
I could do that.
Oh, and we have a volunteer.
Yeah, I'd be happy to caption that.
Thank you, Mary. That would be wonderful. So, and I believe it'll be a quick fix to do that. So thank you so much. Are there any other questions on that? Okay. We also, I think I mentioned, we have 13 local chapters across Nebraska. One of those is in Omaha, and with a lot of our local chapters, we've taken on projects to work on together, kind of to pilot some different things, and so that way when we're thinking that we're changing systems, we know we might actually be. So we've been working with Omaha on a Walmart grant that we had. Sorry? Okay, thank you. And a Medicaid infrastructure grant. We also have been working with them to develop a transition toolkit. Again, as students transition away from high school, we want them to be considering post-secondary education and employment. And so I'll kind of advance here, but these are some videos that we have made with them. And the three different audiences are for families, employers, and service providers, so that people can see just exactly how it does work for people with developmental disabilities to be employed in the community. And I know I'm probably running short on time, so I won't show those to you, but the links are available in the PowerPoint.
How long are the videos? You may have time for one of them.
They're probably about 5 minutes.
Do you want to just maybe show one?
Sure.
And maybe for the families would be a great one. And
Okay.
then, I don't think we have time for all three, but certainly
Yeah,
we probably have time
and
for
they're
one.
very similar anyway, so, okay. Yes, they can also be captioned. Thank you, Mary.
We had never really experienced having or living around a child like Mark, and so we really didn't know what to expect.
We tried to think of something for Gina for work, and we had no idea what we was going to do with her.
Some parents have never envisioned employment for their son or daughter, believing that because of the nature of their son's or daughter's disability, this was a far-off dream. New possibilities are on the horizon. Many families envision their family member with a disability as a valued, contributing member of society with much to offer others.
She had a maturity beyond her years in terms of being able to communicate with adults. She's always been so friendly and outgoing and uninhibited. And so I think her family always knew that she would find her way.
Many families with a child or adult with a disability have a vision of their child working someday, but have no idea how to go about it.
We didn't really know how to make it all happen. And so we worked with the Ollie Webb Center, and they were immensely helpful in steering us on the right course.
Building and using personal networks has proven to be an effective way in which families can foster employment of people with disabilities. Personal relationships family members have within their community have acted as a starting point in getting people with disabilities a job.
I knew Matt, not personally, but his dad has bowled with us for several years, and Matt would always come with his dad bowling. So I knew Matt through that.
And it was his desire to return to Jensen Printing, and so we made the request that Seth come back to work. And is there any work that he could work on a regular basis?
Families with a vision for employment know they can't do it alone. They recognize that it takes the same vision of the school, the employer, and others in the community who will provide a strong network to broaden employment opportunities for people with developmental disabilities.
He's worked with a job developer to find him a job, and she's done a very good job of doing that and learning who he was and what some of his strengths were, and finding something that would be workable for the employer and for Kevin.
Some parents heard that their child may lose their eligibility health benefits or Social Security.
I think we can handle whatever the outcomes are for that. I don't ever want him to slip into the cracks and not be able to reestablish himself if need be. But we right now, with what he makes, we are able to get him back and forth to work and do what we can.
We got it figured out pretty much, so whatever he does make, because he doesn't make a whole lot that I know of anyhow, because he has to pay rent on here, his lights and his heating and that kind of stuff too.
Some parents have also heard that no jobs are available or that employers don't want to hire a person with a developmental disability. Maybe the person with a disability doesn't use words to communicate. Maybe transportation isn't readily available, or accommodations will need to be made so that person with the disability is able to do their job.
He does have a speaker that he uses. He started out with it, but I guess he just fell into the routine of his work schedule that he really didn't use it, nor did we require him to use it. It worked out for both ends of us.
The only accommodation we did make after his hire was the method of him clocking in and out. The system we use is a computer, and it's very confusing for anyone not knowing how to use a computer. And we just basically took that out of the equation, and that was the only stressful thing in his job. And now it works great.
Just as we ask all children what they want to be when they grow up, the possibilities must be endless for all children with and without disabilities.
Kevin does a wonderful job. Today, I don't think Kevin really has any struggles. So he knows exactly what's expected of him, and he does a great job.
She's more involved with us now than she was before. Otherwise, we wouldn't see her all day. She would be upstairs. She likes to be with the family now.
Families believe employers must be educated about what people with disabilities can contribute to the workforce. They also believe that employers must understand that ongoing communication and allowing for support when it is needed is imperative in successful outcomes for the employer, the employee, and the business.
I think we want all of our children to be productive, to be active in the community, and I think anyone can go as far as they want to. You just have to help them reach their potential, and I don't think there's anything that any of us can't do if we really try.
Now you mentioned Ollie Webb. Is that the Ark of Omaha?
Yes, it is.
Is there also one? There's one in Sarpy County, isn't there?
There used to be.
Is that disbanded?
Yes, it has. But sorry. No, that's okay. Wherever there's not a local ARC chapter, we encourage people to join the ARC of Nebraska. And of course, if a local chapter is in the area that's restarted, they would be encouraged to join that local ARC chapter.
So might you encourage anybody that may happen to hear this who would like to start one or revitalize the one in Sarpy County?
Absolutely, yes.
And they would contact you?
Yes, they would.
What's your phone number?
It's on the final slide here. Let me move forward because I know I'm running short on time.
You're doing fine.
But this is our contact information, and we can be reached at either the phone or the cell phone number that's on here, and email is also a good way to get a hold of us.
Could you say those out loud for people who are visually impaired?
Sure. Yes. Our phone number is 402-475-4407. Our cell phone is 402-416-8909. Our email is info, which is info at arc-nebraska, nebraska.org, O-R-G. And then we also have a website, which is www.arc-nebraska, all spelled out, .org. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I love the videos.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Thank you.
Yeah, they were great. Thanks so much for your information. I just had one quick question on LB 375. When does that come up for debate? And do you have any kind of a gut feeling on how things are going to go with that?
The hearing has not yet been set for that bill. I would bet that they would appropriate something. They're not going to eliminate it this year, but I think that there are enough senators that are interested, so yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Kathy.
I never know. As we were watching the videos or the YouTubes, I noticed that there was one woman who was talking about that she had to give up parental rights to her son. For the members of the general public who wouldn't understand that, can you explain why she would have to give up rights to her son and he would have to be put in a foster home in order for her to get services?
Yes, she had applied for help from several different services systems and was being denied that help. The only way that she could get it was to relinquish her parental rights, and I don't know the ins and outs of the circumstances in terms of whether it was income and so on. But that was the only way that she was able to get services. And then she brought it to the attention of some legislators who also helped to get services for her. So it definitely wasn't anything that a parent could navigate on their own, probably.
Is it common for parents to have to give up parental rights to their children and actually have their children move out of the home in order for them to get services for them?
I don't have statistical information to share how common that is. We are actually currently working on another grant from the Nebraska Planning Council on Developmental Disabilities, and we know there's anecdotal information available, but we're trying to quantify that. So we are in the process of formulating some surveys and disseminating those for families so that we understand what services families are using and where the gaps and barriers are.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Just, Kathy, one of the things that I found with my work with families was that either some version of Medicaid or the behavioral health carve-out would refuse to provide services, or the division wouldn't, they'd be put on a waiting list or something like that. The division would deny services. The Division of Developmental Disabilities would deny services. And what would oftentimes happen is that in order to get those services covered or to get those services at all, they'd have to be placed with the state, because that would place them under the Division of Children and Family Services. Children and Family Services would then authorize and pay for the services to begin with. The problem for me with that is that Medicaid would pay for it with a federal cut of 60%, so they'd pay almost 60 cents on the dollar. In Children and Family Services, it comes completely out of the general fund. So Nebraska had to pass to pay for 100% of those services when that child is made a ward of the state in order to get them. That's another piece of it.
One other bill I wanted to mention to you. We heard Lynn Redding talk about how she wants to take a job promotion and so on. LB 261 addresses Medicaid. It's called Medicaid buy-in, and it allows people to receive Medicaid benefits but still continue to work at the level that they would like to.
Yeah, I think if there could be movement on that, that to me seems to be one of the biggest deterrents for people to pursue a job that allows them to make more money and realize their potential. Mark?
It's not a question but a comment. One of the key pieces of LB 375 in removing the term retardation as a term of use within legislation and policy is that it really just catches us up with the rest of the country. Rose's Law, which was passed within the last couple of years, started the entire country down that path. And so this is an opportunity for Nebraska to basically be on board with the direction the entire country is moving. So
yeah, I believe 44 other states have passed that, and we have not yet, but we will, yes.
It's time.
Yes, past time.
Well, thank you again.
Thank you.
We appreciate you taking time to share information about the ARC, and certainly a topic and a population that we need to continue to raise awareness and keep information out there. So we'll certainly be extending the invite to have you come back and keep us updated.
Great. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to just take a quick minute and have each of our members introduce themselves one more time. And if there's any announcements, we each have about 45 seconds.
Hello, I'm Michaela Williams, and I'm with Care Consultants for the Aging. I just wanted to announce that our Elder Care Resource Handbook is on our website at careconsultants.com.
Hi, my name's Amanda Vasquez, and again, I'm with the Great Plains Paralyzed Veterans of America. One announcement is that our Adapted Health and Fitness Center with a personal trainer has expanded somewhat, so we've got brand new equipment that is adaptable to basically any individual with a disability. If you are interested or would like more information on the services available, you can call Patrick. He's our personal trainer and sports director at our office. His phone number is 402-398-1422. Thank you.
I'm Kathy Miklas, one of the members of the commission, and I'm working with Mark Smith, another member of our commission, to complete the survey that we will be then giving to designated city employees about their knowledge and comfort level in working with people with different levels of disability. So we have developed the draft of the survey, and we're asking the commission members to review it. And we hope by the next meeting that survey will be ready to give to the city to work with their employees. Thank you.
I'm Beth Ellsworth with the Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. And currently there is some talk about 911 being able to be accessed by text. And if you're interested in getting some more information on that, please contact us. Our website is www.ncdhh.ne.gov.
Mary Angus, just got a couple of announcements. On March 1st from 5:30 to 7:30 in the evening at the Lincoln Community Foundation building at 215 Centennial Mall South, there will be a vigil for people who have been killed by their caregivers, people with disabilities who've been killed by their caregivers. That will be held at 5:30 on March 1st. For more information on that, you can go to the NESILC, Nebraska Statewide Independent Living Council website, nesilc.org, and find out that there's also a plan for independent living that's for the state that you can look at there and provide comments online. They'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Mark Smith with Monroe Meyer Institute. I have two quick announcements, and I'm first to say thank you to Kathy for sharing our subcommittee activities and directions that we're headed on our survey. At the Monroe Meyer Institute, there's two activities coming up. One is in the very near future. One is this Saturday. It's a disability support and resources training. It's from 9:45 to 11:45 in room 3046 at the Monroe Meyer Institute. For more information, I would have you call Kim Falk at 402-559-4951. Then the following day on Sunday is our annual Walk and Roll fundraiser that's promoted by our C. Louis Meyer Board for adult recreation activities. That occurs at 10:30 at the Westroads Mall. I'm told everyone meets at the northeast corner by Dick's Sporting Goods. 10:30 is registration and 11:30 is the walk. There's a $25 registration fee, but the funds go to a very worthy cause, that is providing recreation and fitness activities for individuals with adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Thanks.
Thanks, Mark. And Mike Masker with the Allegiant Creighton Emmanuel Rehabilitation Center. I have no announcements. I'd like to thank Christine, our sign language interpreter, for her fingers. They're probably on fire after today, and her great interpreting skills. I'd like to thank Cox Communications for taping this broadcast. This meeting is rebroadcast on Channel 18 each Tuesday at 7 p.m. Our next meeting is scheduled for March 25th next month at 3:30 p.m., and you're welcome to join us. With that, we are adjourned, and we thank you for joining us.